Hello, in this video I am going to show you how to replace the arms on your Transformers Jetfire figure, or also sometimes called the Robotech Valkyrie. A lot of parts are shared between the two, but they are two separate figures, and for this particular example we are going to be using a Jetfire. So I'm going to start with what I would consider the easier of the two of these replacements. Now, if you're not sure which one you need, you should watch my previous video. Hopefully I'll be able to have a link for you up in the top corner here. And in that video, I will show you what type of part you need. So with this, I'm assuming that you already know that you either need a arm with this hinge on it, or if you need a arm without that hinge, but that you've also secured the spring, the gear, and the screw. So in this situation, what we're going to do is just simply take off these two screws. And for some reason there was only one. That's okay. That'll work for our purposes here. So what I need to do right off the bat is I need to start with taking my crown gear with the bevel on it, and I'm going to put it on at with these two tabs at the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock positions. You can see there. And I am going to then take this spring and the screw, and I'm going to tighten this as much as possible. Now the reason why your Jetfire is missing the arm in this case is that this screw has just over time come loose and loose and loose, and eventually has just fallen off. When it falls off, you lose the spring and the gear at the same time when you're a kid, and you're not thinking about 35 years down the road when you're going to want to keep this precious thing for your own children or something like that. So I've got the back piece off the arm, and important to remember that if you have it to this point, there's nothing that holds this bottom piece on. You can see this one is really, it's actually a pretty poor example, but this one has a spring in the bottom and another bevel gear. So just be aware that if you take this off, there's a good chance that this is going to fall off. That's no big deal. You just have to make sure that when you put it back on, that these tabs are in the position that they need to be in to mate up to the other half. So if I just do this and then line up the hole, then in theory that should all go together like so. Okay, so now what the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take Jetfire and just put him face down. I'm going to get my nail around this screw, and I'm going to pull it back just a little, enough that I can get the tab from the arm piece in behind. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get this piece here, you're trying to get that in between the screw and the spring. So, okay, so there I have done it. And I just, again, need to make sure that that tab is properly lined up, and it is. And then once I have that, I'm able to take the back piece, and it should snap together. And I can take my screw, and I have to hold it together. I have to keep tension on it because there is a spring in the bottom, which is trying to disconnect it. So right now I've only got one screw. I can't do this top screw. But with that in, get this guy stand up, and then we snap the back piece in, and then you can see we've got a properly functioning arm. So that is the easier of the two repairs, where you just need to have an arm that connects with the spring and the screw and the crown gear. Okay, now let's move on to the more complicated of the two. Now, the more complicated of the two is when you have an arm that looks like this that still has the hinge attached. The piece that we just replaced on the other arm is fully intact and is on this arm, so we don't need to worry about that. Now, where this gets a little bit more difficult, though, is then when you have to work with this back piece. This back piece can cause you a lot of problems trying to get everything lined up properly. Now, you can see I'm already missing a tail piece on here. That's fine. We don't need the tail piece. The tail piece is, you obviously need it to have complete, but for our purposes here, we don't need to have that on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking off these 3 screws. 1, 2, and 3. And what this is going to allow to happen is everything is going to kind of fall off of the back piece. Now I'm going to be able to separate the front part from the back part. And there we go. So we've got a good back piece here. Everything seems to be intact. We've got 2 good hooks. When you look at your back piece, you want to make sure the hooks are good and intact. If you're missing a hook, like I mentioned in my last video, it's going to look something like this. If that's the case, then even if you fix the arms, you're still going to have all kinds of issues with the transformation of the figure. So you'll want to try and get that fixed. So we've got a beautiful back piece. And then we have the problem second part of the back piece. Now, I was pretty sure this is what we were going to see. You can see on here that, well, we've got an entire chunk missing. We're not even going to talk about that right now. That's just for our purposes, not terribly important. But right here, you can see that there was at one point in time a small post. And this small post is what captures the arm and holds it into the back piece. You can see here on a fully intact one that we've got these 2 posts, and these 2 posts, once they are put together, fit in just like so. Oh, sorry, this thing's being a little pain. So they fit in just like that, and you can see that everything is nice and enclosed in here. And if you were able to see inside, you'd actually be able to see that pin, and I don't know if the camera's going to be able to show this to you, but you'll actually be able to see that pin in there. If that pin was not there, you'd actually be able to see all the way through the hinge. So what we are going to do for our purposes here for demonstration is we are going to set the broken piece aside, and we are going to take our replacement piece, which has 2 good posts, and we are going to start by attaching the arms. Now, the way that you know how the arms go on, now this is assuming that this piece is all assembled correctly. If you've ever taken one of these arms apart, it's actually incredibly easy to get this all backwards. That's for another video, but arms can be really complicated because you've got left sides and right sides, and the pieces are almost identical except they're just flipped around. So if you're not keeping careful track of your arms, you can quite easily lose track of what goes where. So we've got the post sticking out of the hinge. We've got the longer post and the shorter post. Longer post goes to the top and it slides in, and then it seats down inside. Now, one of the ways to remember how the hinge goes in is that you can see you've got this indentation in the backside of the hinge. Well, that backside of the hinge that indentation allows you to have a screw in there and allows the hinge to be able to close and not get in its way. So that's one of the ways that I remember. So you take your 2 Jetfire arms, slide the long post in the other one, and down. And there you've got your arms. Now that in itself will help you orientate how this is going to go onto the Jetfire. So the next step that I usually take is that I will lay Jetfire down like so, and I will put the arms like this and line up the hinges. Like that. Then what I will do is, again, you got to make sure that the arm didn't accidentally move up, because if you see, if it moves up like this, see right here, this is where the pin goes in. If the pin cannot go in there, what's going to happen is you're going to put the screws in and it's going to kind of force it outwards, and you can even break things at that point. So what you want to make sure is that you've got a nice clearance area in here, and that you've got room for the back piece, the back of the back piece. I don't know what the actual name for this is, but that's what we'll call it. We'll call it the back of the back piece. And I'm going to put it in place. Now this is a terribly yellowed piece going on to a fairly nice and white Jetfire. This is only for demonstration purposes, so don't get mad at me as to why I would put such a yellow piece on such a nice Jetfire. And sometimes you just need to wiggle them around a little bit until that piece actually sits in. So what I'm going to do now is flip the entire piece over, and I'm going to put in one screw at the bottom. Now there's only 3 screws that hold this on. 1, and then there's 2, and then there's 1 on the other side. So I'm going to put this one in, and I'm not going to tighten it up really good. This is more or less just to kind of start to get everything to hang together. And oh, look at that. I screwed up. Okay, well, congratulations, you guys get to see my screw up on camera. It's good to show that, you know, even though I've done many of these, it still happens to me. So what I've actually done here is I have put the back piece on backwards. So just to give you an idea as to what that means, I'm going to take that screw out again, and then I'm going to take the back piece, and I got to flip it around, and that is actually how it's supposed to go. So the orientation that I actually want to have it, well, this will do for now, because I need to put this piece on. So, okay, again, here we go. We're going to put the back side of the back piece on, and I'm going to line up the pins, and then again, I'm going to stick in just that one of the 3 screws, and that's just to hold everything together. All right, so that's just going to make sure that things don't slide around too much. Again, make sure that you're keeping these down, because until you get those screws in, these suckers are still playing up and down. You can see if I put it on its side, see how it was open like that? So I can push down on it now. Now that I've kind of got things captured a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the wings. You can see this is actually a Matsushiro version, which has the painted symbol on it, which is pretty cool. A little bit more rare than your average Jetfire. And I'm going to put that in place. And I will put a screw in here to hold it all together. All right, now I've tightened that up pretty good, and my wing moves, but it's a little bit tighter than I think it should be. So I'm just going to turn it back just a little bit, just because Jetfire's wings should go out fairly easily. And the clicker is really what holds it in place. It's not as much the friction. So now we'll flip over, go to the other side. Again, we'll push it together, make sure that this is everything's lining up, which it appears it is. I'm going to take the other wing and put it in place. And I'm going to take that last screw and put it in, again tight, and then give it probably about one full turn back. Now I'm not sure if you guys saw earlier, but the clicker actually fell right out of the back piece. So we're actually not going to hear any of the click, 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 click as the wing goes back and forth. But if I've done this correctly, now the arms cannot move up and down, and everything is fully captured. And now I can take Jetfire, flip this over, and allow that back piece to click in, click, click, and boom. I've got a Jetfire with 2 arms again. Pretty simple, eh? Wish that I'd had a video like this the first time that I did it. It would have saved me hours. I didn't, but now you have the benefit of it. Hopefully that works for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section. If you have any video suggestions, all I do is Jetfire videos, so your suggestions would have to be Jetfire related. I'm getting into Robotech a little bit, but mostly I have Jetfire, so I can't really stray too much out of that. We're going to have some customs and various other videos coming up soon, and how to whiten some of these yellow parts. That'll be in the near future. So if these kinds of things interest you, if you like toy restoration, and if you're a big Jetfire fan, and I know there's lots of you out there, give this video a like, and maybe consider subscribing as well, because I'm going to be putting more out. Thanks for watching.